Hello, everyone. It is me. I'm a nerd politics. By the way, don't mind the voices you hear in the background, a little argumental debate type thing about. I don't even know what they're talking about, to be honest. Over here because though, ABC News and a lot of Democratic news sources, New York Times, etc., have been saying that no doubt in my mind is that Kamala Harris won that debate. She's going to win the election by a landslide. And also, Fox News and a couple other resources are saying, no, Trump won by a landslide. There's no doubt in my mind. And he's going to win the election by a landslide and, the debate, etc. But the thing is, I don't want one sided policy news. I don't want any of that. I want your independent vote. I want to hear from what all people have to say that summarize the even amount of numbers from each person rather than one direct view of people. And I brought up past elections just to get a better insight. And I am also looking at battleground states because currently, since today's the 14th, the debate was on the 10th, it shows Kamala Harris is leading in the battleground states by total about a 0.1%. Chances are, by the near end of this election, she will not be leading at all in any of the battleground states if the margin of the total is only by zero point 0.1. So, you have Arizona, which is up with Trump by 1%. You have Nevada with 0.9. You have Wisconsin by 1.2, Michigan by 0.7, Pennsylvania by 0.1, and North Carolina by 0.1, and Georgia by 0.1. Mostly though, these blue wall states here, which, include Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, are going to come down to being the most important states when it comes to the election right now. They really determine who's going to be the president here, and I'm going to believe strongly that I still think Trump has an advantage here in the election, just because these polls, if they're only up by such a small margin, only in the battleground states, let alone in the total national polls, which in the margin of 270 and 538 brings it down to about 1.8%. I guarantee by October and the near end of October into the starting of official end of, voting, she will not be leading in the polls because they're already at such low numbers already. But with that being said, I'm going to put in Trump's safe states, that being most of the West here and the majority of Nebraska here, as well as Iowa, just because we know from the primaries how successful that was for Trump, as well as down here in the South, for the most part, he's going to have a lot of success, including the 1st District of Maine and Alaska here. So 121, and for Kamala, easily it's going to be California, Vermont, the most Democratic state there is, the 1st District of Maine, and the majority part of Maine itself. And I'm trying to see if I'm going to say Oregon and Washington would be pretty strong Democratic here, as well as DC. But that also includes, I think, Massachusetts, Connecticut here. So, and also Hawaii for sure, as well as the 2nd District of Nebraska. I think that is going to be the strong suit here, as well as New York. Got to include New York, I think, in this one. So 138, 121. Then you look at leaning Republican states. I'd say Florida is going to be one of those leaning Republican states. If you've seen in the past here, in 2020, Trump won by margins that voters were thinking, no way is he actually going to win, because he won by 3.4% above Biden. But Democrats were expecting that, hey, if he's going to win in Georgia, and you look at the 2016 election when it was barely won, that maybe Biden would do better. But it's proven over time that Trump has a safe landing here in his home state, the Sunshine State of Florida. So and then you come to see Georgia, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But it just seems that Florida is going to be a more likely Republican state. as well as Texas. Texas in 2016 was leading by 5 points. And, back in 2016, that was at 9 points. But, it's gotten less red over time for sure. But I think it's still going to be, I think maybe even 10 points. It might be, 7 or 8 at the least, but 10 points up for Trump. So I think it's a strong red state here as well. Um, and with that, I'm also going to put Ohio as a likely state. Not only just because JD Vance is from there, the vice president doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win a state based off of it. But you see in the 2020, right, he leads by 8 points here, and in 2016, 8.1, really high numbers. But if you look back in 2012, Obama won a lot of states that he probably would not have won, like Ohio, for example, with a 3 point lead, or, even North Carolina back in 2008 with a, barely 0.3, 0.3%, and also won by Ohio in 4.6. A lot of states have obviously changed since then, but I think Ohio is safe to say is a Republican state. By that, as well as Indiana, I'd say in the same way. Um, but that's kind of where I'm looking at when it comes to, and actually, if you really want to go there, so North Carolina back in 2020, it was a 1.3. So it was barely won in 2020. In 2016, it was also at a 3.7 margin. But if you look back in 2008, it was, again, close, but it was Democrat. But, North Carolina hasn't been a very Democratic state for, over 50 years, not including 50 years from until Obama pretty much won the state. But you want to look at things. North Carolina is currently leading by 0.1%. Uh, that's just the margin of it. So I think, North Carolina right now is going to be a battleground state, but looking a month later and near the end of when this election comes up, he'll be leading by far more than 0.1%. I guarantee it. And then let's look at Democrats here. So Democrats, I say, lean for Illinois for sure, lean for New Jersey, Maryland, and Delaware, as well as New Hampshire. New Hampshire's always been a really swingy-like state, but not in a swing state concept like Arizona or Nevada, where one time it's Republican but by barely, or it's Democrat by barely. It's more of it's either Republican by large or it's Democrat by large. But, obviously the polls say that, New Hampshire's up for Kamala, and they're only going to probably go up from this point, I'd have to say, easily said there. And also, I'm going to include Colorado and New Mexico. I don't really have anything to say against the two states, but I will, Trump brought up the Aurora, Colorado thing with, Venezuelan gangs taking over. I'm not sure how credible that is. I definitely saw from Trump himself talk about the amount of migrant victimization of other people has risen, and also the crime rate has risen because of migration. And I know a lot of states that are within Texas to California are getting heavily affected by it. As well as even some places up here where migrants come over here to, New York and sometimes down in Florida. But, I think these states right here from, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and California are getting heavily affected by migration, problems and crime rates going up, and, victimization going up as well. But I think Colorado and New Mexico are still going to be more likely Democrat or lean in that direction. And really, that leaves us with the battleground states minus Minnesota, and I'll get to that in a minute. I've always believed Minnesota is probably going to be a red state here in a little while, but things have changed, so maybe not. So let's look at the first one. So Wisconsin, Biden won this state by a little bit over point, yeah, like I think, yeah, 0.63 is what it says. But I think in the final result, by like what CNN said, it was like by 0.5 barely, so half a point. So yeah, this was obviously a very close win. But if you look in, of course, in 2016, Trump also won this by, yeah, a little bit above 0.75. So, a little bit higher, but still not that high. Last time the state was, dedicated towards one party, Obama won by nearly 7 points, and of course by double digits in 2008. And if you want to go to a timeline where Wisconsin was strongly red, you're going to have to look back to you know, the 1980s here, like 1984 when you got a 9.2 lead, or even like a 4.7. You have to go back a long time to see Wisconsin be just strong on one side or strong on the other. It's always been really close, and even in the battleground states here, it's showing that Wisconsin is leading by 1.2% here. And again, I will bring this up almost every time for the battleground states. This is September. Come October, a month later from this point, you're seeing this video. Those polls will go down for Democrats, and they will rise for Republicans, but it's going to be neck and neck at the moment. So I'm going to say that Wisconsin, probably very lean Democrat at the moment right now. Next one is Michigan. Michigan was won 2.8 by Biden. Comparatively to 2016, it was won by zero point 0.2 by Trump. Very close margins, very close. The only thing that was secondly close to this was New Hampshire, like very close margins. And you go back even further, like Obama obviously carried that state by nearly double digits and did in 2008. The last time the state was, completely Republican, one sided, was pretty much the 1988 election, was, Bush Sr., pretty much. And if you go back even further, of course, with Ronald Reagan, hands down, right? Currently, Michigan is leading by 0.7 as what is said on Real Clear Polling. However, I'm willing to believe that it's not 0.7. I'm willing to believe that if you add up all the numbers and you marginalize them, I'd say it's probably 0.1% for Harris right now. Just how I see it, just because the blue wall states are, again, one of these very neck and neck kind of election type states here. So we're looking at very two close margins right here. And the next is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is going to be super important to the Republicans and the Democrats, especially because of the debate that just happened back in 2020. Biden won it with 1.2% here. And 2016, Trump won by, nearly 0.75, like a little bit under that. The last time the state was, full Democrat, of course, Obama had that back in 2012 and, of course, in 2008. But if you want to go to a timeline where it was a dominant Republican state, you would have to go back to Bush Sr. again, 2.3. And even that's not even close. You want to go back even further, 1984. And even before that, it was definitely a lot more Republican as it is today. Now, of course, Pennsylvania shows with Harris at 0.1%, which gives me the doubt, it gives me doubt for Harris winning this state by super close margins. If anything, these numbers will not lead for, if they're at 0.5 or lower, chances are Harris will not win these states based on the polls they show, just because a month from now, people are going to get really scarce of the time that they have to vote on people, and more undecided voters seem to be going for Republicans more than Democrats. I'm willing to believe that Trump probably will end up winning Pennsylvania, but again, by very slim margins, maybe by 0.5, 0.6% here. So that's just how it looks here. If you want to go to the next one, Virginia won by double digits in 2020, 10.1%. And you want to go even back further, the Democrats have won, Virginia for a long time. The last time it was a Republican state was in 2004 when Bush Jr. won the state. But I'm still willing to believe that Virginia is going in the direction of the Democrats here. And that leaves us, with Minnesota, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. And with Georgia, The state was barely won by not even, not even 0.25% of the vote went to Biden. It was very, very close. You compare that to 2016, it was 5.1, but the last time that Georgia was a Democratic state was, of course, in 1976. And I don't think that Harris can pull in those kinds of numbers anymore, even on here. Trump is winning so far by 0.3%, and I only expect that to go up. So I think Trump has this state almost in the likely range here for this election. That would put him at 270. He wins. There's still 3 more states, though, so let's get down to it. So Arizona and Nevada, I'm going to talk about. Nevada was a 2.4 lead, and Arizona was a 0.3% lead. In 2016, Clinton actually had lower in the state by 2.4, but Arizona was 3.5. I think when it comes down to it and what this has to say, Nevada is saying 0.9. I think that Harris might have the ability to win this on the low end, but that's look at a month from now. These numbers could obviously change. And with Arizona, it's a 1.3 lead. I think that's only going to increase. I think Trump has this stronger, here. And then we have Minnesota. I've talked for a long time that Walz destroyed his governing state here in Minnesota. There was arson left and right, people in danger, cops and firefighters scared to even help out because they know that people are just reckless. And when the George Floyd thing happened, instead of Walz trying to be reasonable about it and give it insight, he instead let people just burn down the streets, let people hurt others, and he barely won re-election. I think it was like a 52 like 47 type thing. Like, it was barely so won. Not even a lot of people of his own governing state like him anymore. But that doesn't really say that Walz being the governor means that ultimately he's going to win the state. If you even look in the past year, like 7.1, obviously, in 2020, but you want to go back further, like 2016, it was like a 1.5 situation. It was way lower. And this really stands out. Is really two things stand out. One, Minnesota has not been a Republican state since 1972. Not even Ronald Reagan could get the state. The last person was Richard Nixon. That was it. Since then, and in 2016, Trump could have won it, but lost by 1.5. Like, it was very close. I still think when it comes to a month away, based on the damage Walz has done and the policies Kamala wants, which is a very authoritarian, communistic policy, I think, and how she wants to control the economy, etc. I think it's very socialistic. It's very authoritarian, something I don't agree with. And for that reason, I think Trump barely, I'm going to say even by 0.1, 0.2% wins Minnesota here. But this is what I'm looking at as a 291 to 247 deal right here. But of course, I want your comments and your decisions in the description down below. But of course, until then, I will see you all in the next political video. Peace out, everyone.